culture has some economic significance, and all economic activity has some cultural significance. And the more we recognize that, the more it's possible for us to think creatively and think about building an innovative cultural significance. And the third thing she said was, the successful projects for creative industries never start by looking at an area's needs. It starts by looking at an area's strengths, its assets, its capabilities, however small they may be. It may be one or two people who have an idea, but actually all the successful creative economy strategies start from looking at what is an area's strengths. So can we have the next picture, please? Another not very convincing picture. So my point in all this is the missing ingredient in talking about creativity and technology is people, it's society, it's people who, and the needs of people who drive these creative changes. And it's something which it's very easy for us to forget, and it's something that it's very easy for us to ignore. Can we have the next picture, please? And we can have people living in a society of great diversity. One of the other issues which comes across very strongly in all the studies of creative economy is that diversity is important. One of our mantras, if you like, in the UK is diversity is more important than ability. One of the reasons that London has been very successful as a creative industry centre is because it is such a fantastically diverse city. There are newspapers, daily newspapers in 40 different languages in London. It's a world city, and it's the different cultures, the mix of expectation, the mix of philosophy, the mix of understanding that drives that. So here you have a city with diversity, but there is not much sharing going on. So one of the easy issues is to have a city which is diverse but is not engaged. Finding the institutions that pull people together, that enable people to exchange ideas, exchange different kinds of knowledge, is something which is absolutely crucial. And can we have the next picture? And here's another little story. There's a children's hospital in London called Great Ormond Street, and because it's a children's hospital, we're all very sentimentally attached to it in the UK. We love it, and people donate money to it, and it's a very popular institution. And there was a television series about the hospital, and in one of the episodes, there was an operation on a baby, and then the TV show demonstrated how at the end of the operation, this baby and all the operating team carry the baby through to the post-operative care, all the detail of how that's managed. And one of the people watching it was an employee of Ferrari. He's the guy who changes the tires in the pit stop in the Formula One race. And he thought to himself, what they're doing in that operating theatre is exactly what we do with a racing car. It's a team that has to work together really fast. They can't make any mistakes. If they get something wrong, somebody may die. It's really important that they work together. So how they communicate, how they manage, who is responsible for what is really important. And he said to some of his colleagues, I think we can teach these doctors some good ideas from Formula One racing. And they went into the hospital, and they worked for 2 or 3 weeks with the medical staff, and they changed the procedures in the hospital. So this guy, you can imagine, somebody says, I work for Ferrari and I've come to tell you how to run your hospital better. They could say to him, who the hell are you? But they listened to him. And he had the courage and the confidence to say, I think I've got a good idea. He properly used his skill to help somebody else develop their skill in a way that nobody had anticipated. You can't plan these things because they happen organically, but they happen in a society where people feel that they can share and they have the confidence to share. And they have the confidence to believe that their ideas are worth having. And so many people do not have the confidence that their creativity is of real value, economically, socially, or culturally. So I like that story for that reason alone. Can we have the next picture? And finally, I'm nearly at the end now. This is a picture of a coffee house in London 250 years ago. But it's also a picture of the start of Lloyd's insurance market. And I don't know, Lloyd's is the biggest insurance market in the world. Massive operation, still headquartered in London. And it's called Lloyd's because the man who ran this coffee house was called Lloyd's. And people used to get together in his coffee house and talk. And they began to talk business. And they liked sitting in the coffee house because they could talk about the weather, they could talk about their loves, they could talk about whatever they wanted, but they could also do business. And so from this little cafe, not an office, but just from a cafe, grew this fantastic insurance market. And I think it's a good lesson for us because sometimes what we forget is that the way good ideas start, the way creative ideas start, is not because we